Hi, Paul Martin, Managing Director of Excel in Business, or EIB. Today we're going to be looking at how do we radically change the way we deliver management information to the insurance industry using EIB's Insurance Analytics application, and how's that different from some of the sort of things that are out there today. So if we start, I guess, looking at where is sometimes the challenges in insurance. I'm looking at this from the purpose of an MGA, but it's obviously similar to insurance companies and brokers. There are a lot of stakeholders. So taking a top-down approach, we look at capacity and reinsurance. Really vital that we deliver accurate information to both of those, or the effects can be detrimental or even terminal to the business. Talking to one colleague, he said that when he worked for an insurance company, they rejected 9 out of 10 MGAs because they weren't convinced that they were on top of their business through the information that they presented from an MI perspective. And then of course you've got at the underwriting level. Are we winning or losing? Are we writing business? Where are we writing good business? Where are we writing bad business? How do I understand the good areas so I can write more in there and less in the areas where we're not performing so well? Brokers, a lot of conversations on broker commission where brokers are saying, well, we give you all this business, we should surely get some more commission next year when we renegotiate. But of course, unless that business is good, unless you can look at these statistics, looking at loss ratio analysis, then you want to understand, well, is it really profitable, even though it's potentially high premium income? And then on the claims analysis side, obviously we want to spin the data a slightly different way, but now look, are we adequately reserving? Are we actually making the most of our claims analysis and understanding year on year where we're getting good performance and bad performance? And what's quite difficult is that normally with MGAs have to bring all of those requirements together and analyze them in one place. And that one place, I guess we know where that's going to be. And that tends to be actually managed by an underwriter because there's not many IT staff or personnel in most MGA organizations. So you get this effect. You get MGAs typically have limited IT resources, and the really worrying side is MIs precariously held together by Excel and their staff. And their staff there can meet an underwriter. I know one situation of one underwriter at an MGA was spending 4 to 6 days a month just cobbling together Excel spreadsheets that were 1, inaccurate, and 2, not a good use of the time, and 3, how much opportunity cost is there if you're wasting, in quotes, 4 to 6 days a month just becoming an Excel hack rather than doing what you're good at, which is underwriting in the business. So if we look at the MGA road to analytics, why some of this is quite complicated is you start conceptually, you have an MGA with all the facets around that, maybe add TPAs into that equation, and ultimately what we're trying to do is get nice looking reports and dashboards that show us if we're on top of our business on a mobile device, on a tablet, PC, on a browser, whatever, any way we want. That's where we're trying to get to. But in the way there is, of course, it might not just be one MGA. There might be multiple MGAs where we're trying to get that information and pull it together to look at our total book. And even if there's only one MGA, of course, often there are multiple lines of business, which further adds to the complexity of bringing all that information together. And as a result of those first 2 items there, then typically you might have different policy management applications providing the premiums data. You might have data from TPA organizations providing the claims data, and in some cases you haven't got the data coming cleanly from either of those, and you're getting perhaps Excel or claims Bordereaux files. And of course the role of the MI application is to somehow magically bring all of that together and produce a coherent set of reports and dashboards. And ironically, it's not even as simple as that, because there are other complexities involved. What happens when there is bad or missing data? What do you expect to happen? One organization wanted to analyze information by region, and about 40% of the data had no region information in there. So what do you expect to happen? If you just add it in, as most people would do on things like pivot tables, then it's going to present actually inaccurate information. What about the inconsistencies if you are pulling together multiple policy management and claims applications? How do you actually handle those so that in one MGA it's, broker is stored at one level, another MGA is stored at a different level, perhaps a sub-broker level? How do you bring them together? And of course, a lot of the time there is a need to augment the data, i.e. provide analysis where that analysis doesn't exist in the base data. So one example there was a carrier wanting to understand age band analysis. So we wanted to understand taxi drivers that were certain age bands. Now that age band data didn't exist in the core underlying data, but we need to obviously construct that from things like date of birth of the policyholder. A lot of people want to have hierarchies and groupings. You might have brokers, sub-brokers that logically consolidate into main brokers, so you can do main broker analysis. And the other issue we have, of course, is that of scalability. We want this to scale from very small startup MGAs to very large insurers. And of course, the mechanics behind that, while similar, has very different challenges when you're handling lots and lots of data. And we totally do that in our application. And one of the things that we've seen as a complexity is there could be different periodicity of the source files. So we've had things like where the premiums data is in monthly movements and the claims data is at a YTD position at any point in time. Now, of course, we have to either make year to date in month or in month year to date before we can logically join that information together. And the biggest thing around all this is all of the above and on the previous screen needs to happen in an automated fashion. We cannot be in a situation where MI doesn't happen unless the MI person is in the organization and is not sick and is not on holiday or not attending meetings. That is a ridiculous position to be in. So how do we develop this into a product, and what is our product strategy? The whole point here is to deliver insurance data to MI apps in record timescales. We can't have this thing that takes 3-6 months before anyone sees an application. We reckon we can get a 300% productivity improvement using our application as opposed to using raw tools to put this together yourself. And we have to make sure that whatever we deliver, people trust. Put a lot of effort into the product to looking at what is the quality of the data, what should we reject, if we do reject it, what do we tell the customer they need to correct in the underlying policy management application or claims application to make sure that information is sanitized. And then how do you deploy this? Once we've done all the clever bits on the database side, how do you visualize it? And what we've gone for here is using Microsoft's Power BI for the dashboards, but we provide a whole suite of pre-built dashboards so you don't have to, along with our own Excel add-in called EiB ReportStudio within the Excel environment. So if you're delivering insurance sensitive reports like loss ratio analysis, triangulation reports, you can do so really, really easy. And of course, this information should be available wherever you are. So if you're using a browser, it should be there. If you're using a mobile device, phone or tablet, we should be able to deliver it there and then. And I think the thing that's different is when we configure the application, it's very much more of a packaging thing rather than a develop from scratch. So you can see that even at the admin level, there are things here that we define using menus where you can actually get guided through the application design. And ultimately what we're producing using our EiB App Studio backend product is these visual designs that suck up the data, cleanse the data, massage the data, and then ultimately put it into a data warehouse that you can query from your front end reports. Now this is a really techie slide, but this is what has to go on behind the scenes. The good news is you don't see any of this. We just handle this for you. You might have a raft of information on quotes, premiums, claims, complaints, and that needs to go into a data lake. You want to throw that information into the data lake so that it's actually there for all time, and you can dip in and dip out of that information as you need it. Our data ingester will actually take that information and sanitize it. We then use EiB App Studio to get that into a SQL Azure environment, and then we can report on that data using either Excel or Power BI. Now that is a huge amount of complexity to do yourself. Good news is you don't have to. We do that for you. And then of course you're onto the front end. So we've now got all the data sanitized at the back end. How do we provide a complete spectrum from dashboards through to formatted reports? And in between, of course, how can you go off-road? And if there's something you want to explore, you can do so without, and I stress, without being a product expert. One of the things frustrated me is there are too many BI products out there that say it's really, really easy. You just actually bring up our panel and you drag this into the rows and you drag that into the columns. Yes, if you're a system designer or a report builder, you can do that. Average end user, no chance. But it doesn't remove the requirement. and we provide that and address that requirement using our technology. So what are the choices out there of front-end tools now? If we look at the Microsoft stack, we have a great product called Power BI, Microsoft's Power BI, that is brilliant in this spectrum of delivering dashboards. I think it's the best of breed out there. But as you go down into ad hoc analysis, and particularly into formalized reporting, doesn't really cut it as any dashboard product would in these two areas. And then you have a look at another thing. You can obviously put Microsoft's pivot tables from within Excel on top of the offering. Doesn't really handle high-level dashboards, not too good at formalized reporting, but actually reasonable at ad hoc analysis where you can slice and dice the data in any way you wish. And then you have our ReportStudio add-in in Excel. Absolutely fantastic at doing things like loss ratio analysis, triangulation reports and so forth in Excel, in native Excel, and really good at allowing you to do ad hoc analysis and doing this train of thought analysis that I spoke about early on. Now I think you can see where we're going with this. If you add our technology to Power BI, then you do fully get this spectrum of dashboards through to ad hoc, through to formalized reporting. So let's have a look at how do we deliver that using the product itself. So I'm now going to flip over to the EiB Analytics demonstration. Okay, so welcome to the EiB Insurance Analytics demonstration. I'm sitting in here within the Excel front end called EiB ReportStudio. Now these screens are obviously configured to the MGA, insurance company, broker, whatever organization, but this is the typical sort of front screen that you could come into. So we're sitting in Excel. We might want to look at the data sources that we have, and I'm going to start there. So let's have a look at what are we actually considering here. So I've got premiums, claims, what are the actual calendars here, and do we want to add things like geospatial analysis? Now I'm doing this with UK postcodes, but obviously this is applicable to any country that has a postcode mapping. So if I look at premiums first of all, this is just going to load. In this case we're using a sort of Bordereaux file, but this of course could equally be a SQL Server or Azure database from your premiums application or policy management application. So that's the sort of information we get. You should be fairly familiar with this. It's kind of like a Bordereaux style information where you've got things like binders, policy numbers, and then breakdown of things that you want to analyze. So whether you've got products, schemes, a transaction type, is it a new, is it renewal, is it an MTA, is it cancellation, a load of different dates that are obviously important, maybe regional information here like postcodes in this UK data set. And a load of metrics that we want to bring together. So we need to obviously ingest that information into the MI application and then make it available for reporting. Now in most cases the premiums and claims data isn't in the same application or same file. So we have a similar situation here now where we're looking at the claims data, and I guess the only normal link between the two is the policy number. And even in there sometimes you have to reconstruct the policy number, because even though perhaps the number is the same in the claims application, maybe it didn't have that TPC/ in front of it. We've seen that on several occasions. So sometimes there's additional massaging needs to happen before you can integrate that information. And so we're going to take both of those and obviously merge that together. And then obviously is, what sort of periodicity do you want on that data? And this is what sort of goes on behind the scenes. But you're going to look at when do you want to start the analysis? How many years do you want to run the MI initially for? And what are all the key dates that you want to analyze by? Is it daily? Is it bi-weekly? Is it monthly? Is it a combination of all of those things? Do you want to analyze when there are weekdays versus weekends and so forth? So you can obviously then massage and bring in all that calendar type information as well. And if you have other facets to consider, in this case a postcode mapping, we know that the source data only exists at detailed postcode. So in the UK that would be something like the 4-character district code here, AB10, and then 3 on the end of that, so it'd be AB10 1AB, or for example. But when we're doing analysis and when we're using the postcode analysis dashboard objects in Power BI, they can only do things at the area and district level. So again, we need to take and extract the source data and put it into these sort of formats that we can then look up what the towns and counties are if we want to do analysis of loss ratio in that way. So our App Studio product will now bring together all of that, and this is a very simple example. Of course, there could be multiple premiums files, multiple claims files. Some might be in Excel workbooks, some might be in SQL databases, some might be in Azure. But anyway, that all just magically comes together into the MI database, and then we can start doing things on it. We can start reporting on it using our Excel add-in. We can report on it using pivot tables if you're more familiar with that, and we can report on it using a preset built of Power BI dashboards. So let's go into the Excel reports first of all. One of the things where dashboarding tools are not as good as Excel, and particularly not as good as the EiB ReportStudio adding in Excel, is to provide quite lengthy and well formatted reports like a triangulation report. So I'm just going to click on the Lloyd's triangulation report first of all, and that's going to go away into the MI database we constructed from those source files that I've shown you, and it's then going to bring out the information, in this case for 10 years, to produce a Lloyd's triangulation analysis. So once the data comes back, you can see now I've got a breakdown of the different underwriting years here ranging from 2019 to 2023, and I'm looking at summarized metrics here: the gross written premium, the earned gross written premium, and the incurred loss ratio analysis. So this is typically the sort of things carriers would look at, and the reason why it's a triangulation, as we know, is there's obviously staggered of 12 months between one underwriting year and another to provide this triangle of data. And obviously as it goes down the screen, this is where again Excel probably nicer in terms of laying the information out more coherently than a dashboarding tool. And the great thing about this is we can provide this for any broker. So if you wanted to negotiate some broking commissions here and you want to look at, how is the performance going for a particular broker, you could literally come on to this, double click on the broker, and then instantly see the broker's triangulation stats. And you can see this by location. You could even go down to a particular policy if you wish to, and you can look at this across different claims versions, i.e. the transaction day, incident day, or notification day, and across different schemes. Now, as well as doing this numerically, if we flip across to the dashboard, you can also see a breakdown here. Again, remembers that the fact you changed the broker from all brokers, i.e. book level, to Camulus, and now you're actually breaking down the gross written premium income, and as you go down further you're looking at the earned premium income right the way through down into loss ratio analysis at the end. And you can selectively pick in Excel here which reports and charts that you want to filter by. So really powerful layout using our Excel add-in EiB ReportStudio. And we'll go on to the next report. This is a much simpler report where we're looking at the main metrics and then actually looking at how do we analyze that by scheme. So in this example we've got the main metrics, as we said, across the top, everything from gross written premium down into your written incurred loss ratio percentages there, and we're breaking that down by scheme. And we can view that again for any broker, we can view it for a county, we can view it for a town, we can view it by anything that matters to the MGA or insurer here. But a lot of the time we want to go off-road. We might look at something like gross written premium, and we're looking at by scheme there and think, wonder how that is broken down by a broker or broken down by county or whatever. Now of course here I can double click on the broker as you've seen before, and I can pick which broker we do this report for. But I didn't ask that. I said I wanted a look at premium and break that down by a broker, or maybe I want to look at a particular scheme and break that down by broker. Let's do that. Now normally at this stage we'd have to know the product and know how to interact with the product. But using EiB ReportStudio, I can just take one of these. If I take private motor, and I can do this thing called EiB train of thought analysis, and I can just pick the metric I'm interested in and say I want to break that down now by broker. And when I select that, the product will build without me knowing anything really about the product other than right clicking on what I'm interested in and asking for the analysis. It will build a brand new report on the fly where it will move private motor into the criteria here, so I can again double click on that and look at it by commercial vehicle, fleet or motorcycle, and replace what's in the rows with the actual brokers. And it's done that in a few seconds without, again, me knowing anything about the product. So now you can see private motor in here and a breakdown by broker. And I can carry on that train of thought. I might say, okay, I understand that. I'm happy for brokers to be here, but I want to look at my gross underwriting profit and carry on my train of thought now. And maybe look at that by a scheme. So I'm going to flip that, or by binder. So I'm going to flick that to binder now, and it's now going to do exactly the same. It's going to produce another new report where it now breaks down the underwriting profit, which we asked it, and we've now put the binder actually in the columns and broken that down by broker. And that's what using the EiB software gives you, which you don't typically have in MI applications today. And you'll see each one of those is a report in its own right. As I close down there, you can see as I go through, back up through the hierarchy. And of course, I could save any one of those reports and it would be then a report available to me, and I could even package it into the menu. So as I go through the system, I don't have to build hundreds of reports up front. I can actually take these, provide that train of thought analysis, and allow the end users to then select as they need. So I'm going to carry on that thought now, and now look at it by a claims. In that first report there, we had, or first two reports, we had a mixture of premiums and claims data. Now what we're going to do is actually have a look at it by different version types of claims. With claims, you tend to have three key version dates: the incident date, when the actual accident happened; the notification date, when the broker informed the MGA of the actual accident; and then the transaction date, which is how things were paid out. So if we settled claims in a certain month, then obviously those payments would go against that month rather than the incident or notification date. So what we've done here is we've broken down the claims version by those three key areas. We've also had a blame dimension here, so we can look at, where was there shared blame, where was the insured at fault, and where was the other third party at fault. And we can actually drill down dynamically through this. So we've got a very summarized view here by year, but if I double click on the year there, that will then break it down into quarters. And then I can obviously take each quarter and then take a particular quarter and drill down into months. And that's the other thing to be cognizant of, I guess, with this sort of analysis. You can start with a very summarized report, but allow the users to drill down into the level they need to manage or review their part of the actual business. Now, we provide a range of reports in Excel. They were just three simple examples. You can extend that also to things that you're perhaps familiar with. So if you had people in your organization who are familiar with pivot tables, of course the downside of them normally building pivot tables is they have to construct all the data behind it, and that of course is where the effort and the errors happen. But here you've got a nice sanitized MI database, so it makes pivot tables now a lot more accessible. And I could look at that by broker. So this again is going to the same information that we were viewing before, and now breaking that down by broker and by scheme. And all of that is live. And the beauty of the pivot tables option is you can actually run this both from within Excel, and you can even run it now from within Power BI fully interactively. Okay, so hopefully you can see that for accessing reports, highly formatted reports, insurance reports like Lloyd's triangulation, all of that is perhaps best done in the Excel environment. But of course, if you're looking at high-level dashboards, then you might want to do that in Power BI. Now we can actually source control all of your Power BI files from within the EiB environment, and we can even call the web-based app from there. So if I want to go to what the end user would see, I just click on here. Now of course you could come into this directly from your browser or mobile device, so it's kind of horses for courses depending on what your users need to analyze. Okay, so what we've done here is we've broken down it into 4 packs. I'm not going to go into all of the reports here, but just to give you a flavor of a couple of those, I'm going to have a look at the broker analysis and look at broker ranking as a start point. So in this example here, we're breaking down the brokers by their key metrics. I'm just going to minimize the menu here so I've got a little bit more real estate. And the beauty of using the Power BI dashboards here, or EiB's Power BI dashboards, is that we've got high level information by broker here and actually quite detailed information by policy number here. And you can decide the analysis you do here. You can pick a particular policy year. So I'm looking at 2019 year of account. I can obviously click on that and change to any other policy year if I wish. We are sorting on net written premium. So we're looking at our brokers who have the highest net written premium. You could do it the other way and look at the villains and actually click on gross claims incurred here, and that will now filter on who has the highest claims incurred. Now, what I can do now is I can take one of these brokers, and if I'm interested in breaking this down into more detail, by clicking on the broker here, I'm now getting a detailed breakdown of all their policy numbers. So just policy numbers for Mint Jack here, and actually again sorted at policy level of the worst claims. So you can see some pretty horrendous claims. By the way, this is all demo data. But you can see how I've got massive incurred claims here against very low net written premium. And we can do that in seconds. Taking a different spin on things, I'm going to go to the underwriting overview here. And this is what most people, I think, struggle to produce today. And this is where we bring together all the key underwriting metrics. So we're looking at here at premium and claims data all together. So we're looking at written premium, which typically comes in on a motor policy here in the first 12 months. And that is how the premium comes in. But we're then looking at how that premium is earned across the policy, and of course these should converge, which they do. And then from a claims point of view, we're looking at negative claims, i.e. recoveries. What did we manage to recover back? And then if we add the paid claims on top of that and the reserves or outstanding claims on top of that, then logically the gap between the two is our gross underwriting profit. Now, most organizations can only dream of producing this sort of analysis, which you get out of the box with the EiB application. Now, again, I can actually look at this and look at this for a particular, here I'm looking at for the whole business. I could look at that for a particular underwriting year. Not only could I look at a particular underwriting year here, I could also perhaps look at it for a particular broker. So again, if I wanted to renegotiate with the broker, I could actually go here, pick EiB Insurance here, and actually see that's quite a healthy book here, big margin between the premiums and the claims. Okay, so we've looked at broker performance, we've looked at a glimpse at underwriting performance, and now if I look at claims, a lot of the time we want to do geospatial analysis, and I showed you very early on how we could process files to make sure we brought in all the postcode information. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, this is focused very much on the UK, but if you have other countries where you have the postcode mappings that can be picked up by Power BI, we can incorporate those in exactly the same way. So if I look at it at a summarized level here, I'm looking at one broker because we'd already done the filtering on Black Tweed Insurance. I take that off now, and we're now looking at this at a national level. And the great thing here is I've got a number of ways of navigating. I can actually take a particular area here. I've got the whole of the UK, and if I want to look at the summary area and then break that down into more granularity, then I can click on the area I'm interested in. It will home in on that area and then break that area down into further detail and show me which postcodes are available here. So NR is my area postcode, and you can see as I hover over here, it shows me the part of the UK which is the NR postcode area, and within here is the sub NR postal districts. So I've now got NR12, NR13, and you can see now the breakdown and the metrics behind each one of those districts. And ultimately, as you drill down here, you're again going right the way back to underlying policy detail if you need to do that, and really, really quickly. And then last but not least, we are starting to look at perhaps new ways of visualizing data. And one of those ways is the word claims analysis, where what we're doing here is we're taking things like an incident report. And an incident report, obviously by definition, is almost going to be unique. It's the way that the assured describes what happened in a particular claim. So obviously these are going to be completely different lengths, completely different verbiage, location, vehicles, whatever. But how do we tap in to that non-structured information as well as all the other structured data that we've been looking at so far. So what this is doing, it's actually filtered all those words. And if I wanted to pick on a certain area and think that maybe we were interested in, I don't know, accidents where the vehicles were parked, I could go to this word cloud, click on parked, and it would now show me all the claims that has something to do with parking. So I've got £2.3 million worth of gross claims incurred that has something to do with parked. Now we can do that the reverse way. We could actually look at a particular claim here, and by clicking on that claim it will actually show the words that it's picked up to actually analyze that data. So as well as doing the sort of traditional type analysis, we're always looking for new ways to add value to the information, to bring out some nuggets that perhaps wasn't there in the obvious ways that we typically analyze data in Excel. Okay, I hope that's given you a good overview of what is possible, albeit only a glimpse of what's possible using EiB Insurance Analytics. Now, if I just go back, what are you fundamentally getting with this product? And I guess what you have to assess as a customer is how much would you pay for something that gives you more underwriting. If you've got your underwriters here spending time, wasting time in my opinion, producing Excel reports, then wouldn't it be great if they could just focus on underwriting? A lot of the time bigger organizations would have a number of MI analysts or even MI department to do the sorts of things we've shown you that our application can deliver. And how much is the cost of that? Likewise, there's a lot of clever tech that goes on behind the scenes. We can handle all of that on your behalf without you having to spend money on valuable resources. And a lot of the statistical information is you would typically pay for an actuary for. So again, how much would you save from using the application? So I guess that's the question you have to ask yourself. If you've liked what you've seen, would you like to see more? And how much do you think that could save you both in time, accuracy, and ultimately cost? Thank you.